Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home. For it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church.
Samuel said to Saul, I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites.
Jésus, par ton sang précieux, enlève mon iniquité. Regarde-moi sur les cieux, dis-moi que tu m'as pardonné. J'ai longtemps erré cœur rebelle, mais j'entends ta voix qui m'appelle. Au pied de ta croix maintenant, tout confus, brisé, je me rends. Blanc, blanc, plus blanc que neige, blanc, plus blanc que neige, lavé dans le sang de l'agneau, je serai plus blanc que la neige.
Now go, attack the Amalekites, and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. 1 Samuel 15.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Honneur ak apil respect. It is my honor and my privilege to welcome you to this second episode of God is Not White. My name is Jafrica Haiti, and I greet you from Ottawa, Gatineau, the capital city of Canada. Now, today we are going to have a very special program. And as we usually do it, we will use a slide presentation through which I will cover the material for the day. What I will say from the onset with regards to this particular episode of God is Not White is that given that we are on the 1st of January, we consider it appropriate to dedicate this presentation to two very esteemed ancestors who were with us a few decades ago. We're talking about Emperor Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the noble ancestor who liberated the island of Haiti and established the Empire of Freedom on January 1st, 1804, as well as Comandante Fidel Ruz Castro, a truly beautiful human being who did what many who claim to be followers of, the mighty God of all that is good, etc., have not actually done. But you could say that Brother Fidel Castro did his best to put his actions to the service of people, of humanity. And so, as today, January 1st, is the celebration of independence, both in Haiti and Cuba, which are right beside each other in terms of proximity. We dedicate this episode to these two gentlemen. So I'm just trying to fix some problems there. Okay, perfect. I think we're good. We will today cover a segment of God is Not White that I consider to be, and perhaps I'm mistaken, but I would say easiest for folks who, like me, grew up in a Christian upbringing in terms of what part of the discussion we will cover today. And so, as the title says, the subtitle, Praise God Down with Religion. Today we will not be talking so much about religion, but rather about God. And why indeed do we say praise, that this God is deserving of praise, and what God precisely are we talking about, and whose God are we talking about? And so I will end with my current working definition of God. And so the slides will really focus on this aspect of the work. Again, I remind folks who are connected for the first time today that this is the second episode. Our previous episode dealt with my own trajectory into this issue of faith and the relationship that Africans, including those who were displaced from the continent, have with the Abrahamic faith. Now, uh, so this here is also a discussion that is anchored on my book published in the year 2000, Viv Bondye à Relijyon, translated into straight English would be Praise God Down with Religion. And so chapter one of that book is focused on God. And so this is what we are going to cover in the following weeks. And we're starting that today. And so, God, what is it that we're referring to when we utter this word? And when and how this entity first enter my consciousness? You will see that in Viv Bondye à Relijyon, I introduced the topic using the ultrasound of our child, Lamukaji Kebindaiti, who was expected just a few months after publication, actually a few weeks after publication of the book. The book was published in April 2000, and Lamukaji came out of his very comfortable abode from the bosom of his mother in June 2000. And this ultrasound was when he was 4 months inside of the womb. It is only as I was doing the presentation that it dawned on me that perhaps the reason why I chose this ultrasound to introduce the discussion of God in the book is also perhaps because the entity that we are calling God might have been first introduced to me as I was in the womb. And I don't know how I understood those sounds that I was hearing while I was inside of my mother's womb. However, it must have been quite an experience to have a brain that is developing at the same time as you are hearing these sounds, and there is a voice that would become familiar to you because this is the person inside of whom you are developing. It's something that still awes me at 57 years old. Again, I have no idea whether this is the first time I started to develop this concept of a God. However, clearly, when I came out into this world as someone who grew up in Haiti, it is through the Christian experience, the neo-colonial experience in Haiti, that the word God itself uh, um, s- became something that I would hear all over the place. And that also means that I would have heard the word God with all that comes with it, with the imagery, with all of the stuff that I would come to question later on. And so, very shortly, I would also be introduced to the book called the Bible. And of course, growing up in Haiti, this was all mostly in French at the time. And so, today in the presentation, when I talk about God, I am really talking about my personal experience with the concept. And this is why I always insist on underlying that when I talk about Viv Bondye about Relijyon and all of this concept, it is not, an academic exercise. I am speaking of these things from the perspective of an African who grew up in the Caribbean in that neo-colonial context and introduced to these concepts in such a specific manner. However, as a young person growing up, you end up developing curiosity around the same questions that everyone has. I mentioned here that I could speculate that from the womb of my mother, I could have started to develop a sense of, who has brought me into this world. And not knowing while you are inside what's going on out there. Once you're out there and you're observing all of the reality, then you ask the question, how did we come to be? And this is not a new question. Human beings have been asking this question, which is around the two mysteries that we come into this world with: the mystery of our beginning and the mystery of our end. And that happens at the individual level as well as a collective level. And so in Viv Bondye about Religion, I anchor the discussion of God out of a necessity to find an answer to these pivotal questions. Okay? So, who was there when the first human being came to be? And who made this happen? And if you answer the question with regards to the first human being, then you will ask the question about the first living being. And then you'll ask the question about anything at all, material thing. And so, uh, what became clear to me as I was growing up was that the story that I was told, that I was introduced to, like I said, I grew up in an environment in Haiti where essentially there is a domination or dominance of the Christian story. That is Adam and Eve created by God from earth. The book of Genesis in the Bible, essentially, that's how we were introduced to the concept of an all powerful God who created the earth. Now, of course, as I was growing up, and even at the time I was writing Viv Bondye Relijyon, and I was 33 years old, um, I was not very familiar with a lot of the work that is being done in astronomy. If you look at this picture here, it's one of the rare pictures of our Earth from the Cassini probe that was taken in 2013, I believe. Now, um, of course, this is very important for perspective because when you hear the stories in the Christian Bible where was being provided answers to these fundamental questions that I had, you would think that we human beings are at the center of the universe, that we are so important that everything evolves around us. Of course, if you take a look at this picture here, where this little dot that we're looking at here is actually Earth, as you're looking from the position of, I believe, Saturn, clearly we are not all that. Certainly not as described in the Christian Bible. So we had these questions. And so growing up, it became clear to me that those who developed the creation story of a God, a male God, that created men and women and created men first and then, broke the man's ribs to create the woman. It's a very messy story, and it came out of a man-made religion. And then later on, I became familiar with Big Bang adherents who imagined their own story according to their own theories. And it became my conclusion, as we say in Haitian Creole, tout moun bwe poa. Everyone is merely guessing because what is being discussed here is beyond human current knowledge. I don't say beyond our ability to know, but current knowledge as we have accumulated it. Now, this has been my conclusion, and essentially that's kind of how I develop it in the book. Now, that said, um, growing up in a country like Haiti, where you do not have access to a lot of material to do scientific inquiry, and even in terms of published material, it's very um, scarce what you get access to. Um, but we had access to nature. And so you will see that in Viv Bondye Relijyon, I anchor my analysis of which of the two proposals is more reasonable. Okay. And I present it as the two groups, one that is creationist, who claim that um, there was a time there was nothing, and all of a sudden, a creator made everything and made them essentially the way they are. Where you have on the other side what I call the Vapmenuist, uh, who essentially claim that there's a big bang that is at the origin of matter existing in the universe. Now, uh, again, this is really taking it to the most simplistic level, for good reason. First, I must say that in developing this topic, it became very clear to me that my own limitations need to be acknowledged. And now my limitations back in 2000, uh, when I was a relatively fresh graduate from university with a bachelor degree in biology, of course, a bachelor of science. Uh, but essentially, this gives you permission to go and research and share the work of others who have done more in-depth research with others. Okay, that's the limitation that I'm working with and that I'm always aware of. And to illustrate, like I drive a car, right, and I'm a relatively safe driver, but the difference between knowing how a car runs and knowing how a car functions and believing that when I turn the key, the the car will run. It's not the same thing. I don't know that the car will run if I turn the key. I believe it because I've done it several times and it has happened. But it's not because I have a knowledge of mechanic that understands exactly what happens when you turn the key and all of the mechanics of a car. Okay, so in other words, that's the differentiation or the difference between a specialist and someone who knows the general information about science. And I consider myself to be in the group of people who have the general information about science. And of course, it's the same thing with regards to religion. I am no expert in those things. Now, when it comes to as we are growing up in belief, when we're going to church, um, we are not trained to know. We are trained to believe. And that belief, we are trained to turn it into something that is not to be questioned. And that's what I'm dealing here with when I'm talking about God. And so, if I arrive at the conclusion that the creationist and those who are adherents to the Big Bang are fighting each other for no good reason, it's because the Big Bang does not answer the fundamental question as to what was there before the single infinitely small point that they say, were expanded and exploded and created everything. It doesn't matter. It's before there was something, what was there and who caused there a situation to go from nothing to something. Big Bang does not answer that. Neither does evolution. Evolution speaks about how living beings transformed through natural selection over time. And so, in essence, what I argue in Viv Bondye about Relijyon, there is no reason why creationists should be in, violent confrontation with those who believe in the Big Bang or in evolution. However, there is this conflict, and the conflict happens because we're dealing with human beings who refuse to acknowledge their limitations. And so, when I say God is mother of life and knowledge, it is anchored on three simple observations that I have shared here. When we look at the universe, the known universe, okay, and again, you will see how the quote from Sir Isaac Newton that we quoted last week is ever present in our mind. That is, what we know, okay, is almost nothing compared to the vastness of what we don't know. The universe, its vastness, beauty, order, and functioning are all signs pointing to the existence of powers of intelligent design, a creator, or aka God. That's again my conclusion. This is saying that I find it reasonable when someone look at the universe and its complexities and the order that's in there, that there is intelligent design there. The earth and all that it contains, that is nature, its beauty, order, and functioning, bear the fingerprints of intelligent design, a creator, aka God. And I also say that it's not only the things that are so far away and humongous compared to our scale, or the earth, but even our own body, our own brain, our being remains something that is completely amazing to us for our comprehension. And so we say human beings, our bodies, our brains, our connections with each other through generations, literature, music, culture, our connections with God. Okay, the freedom to explore, to discover the laws of physics, the laws of genetics, all of these, to me, are signs pointing to the existence and powers of intelligent design, a creator, aka God. Again, here it's to simplify that I say a creator as opposed to creators. At that level, it really doesn't matter. I am saying at the very basic level, I consider these conclusions to be reasonable as opposed to the opposite proposition. And so it's uh, essentially what discussed in the first chapter. And again, I discuss why there is this conflict between scientists and believers, yeah, in the faith. And where it hit me was when I was studying biology at the University of Waterloo. I recall a biology class when the teacher was in front of the class and he uttered a sentence. I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly how he said it, but something like, the birds, in order to fly, had to lose their teeth. And I recall how I felt, looking around the room to see if any other student is going to be shocked by the statement or question it, or whether there's going to be a debate. And then that's when I realized that, well, there's a question of upbringing here. These Most of the students who were in the room with me grew up in Canada, and they grew up hearing about evolution as they were in school. And this is something that they managed to reconcile with everything else that they were hearing, and there was no problem with them to hear this. To me, it was shocking because to me, the teacher was stretching the theory beyond what current human knowledge allowed serious people to say. Because when you go and look at the theory of evolution, um, it, it's a theory. And I know to this day there are people who are in science who are completely annoyed when folks make the statement. And honestly, I find that um, this is very much similar to the creationist who uh, speak sometimes as if their story is something that is proven that uh, they can verify. What the professor was referring to here is the fact that dinosaurs, um, of course, with their humongous size, etc., that used to have teeth, and then they considered the dinosaurs to be the ancestors of the birds, that the normal birds, and that, of course, those physical transformations had to happen before you get to an animal that is agile, that can fly. But the way it's presented, it's as if you had a dinosaur who lost his teeth and then started flying. That's not the scale of what we're talking about when we're talking about evolution. Again, these are speculations. To this moment, there is, no one who has observed that kind of transformation from one species to the next to say that it has happened and this is how it happened. There are all kinds of things that are mysterious in our world, and I find that scientists, um, they also make an error when they try to move too fast with things. And I say in the final analysis, I do not see science and God engage in an actual fight. However, religion and some scientists have been and will likely be feuding till kingdom come. Neither agree to say these simple words to reflect an evident fact. I know that I do not know. And so, although I say praise God because I consider it to be the most reasonable conclusion of the two. That is, that, everything that's here just showed up, as opposed to everything that's here was designed, organized to be. And so it doesn't go further than that. I say that you and I discussing God is like two ants stuck all their lives in a corner of my room here in Ottawa, arguing over the magnitude, the particularities, the beauty, the complexity of Haiti. The scale is completely out of reach. This is not to say that over time we're not getting closer and closer to knowing those things that we do not yet know. But again, like two ants cannot be giving you, the design of the city of Port-au-Prince. I will not be the one to describe God to you tonight. And so I may have disappointed a few people who connected tonight to find the great answer to all of these questions. When did the chicken lay the first egg, and when the first egg hatched the first chicken? No, we still have those two fundamental mysteries. The mystery of our own beginning, the 40 weeks that I spent in the womb of my mother. I believe that's what happened because that's a reasonable thing for me to believe, because I've seen it happen for other people who were born after me. And those who came before me told me, yes, you were inside of your mother's womb, and we study science, we've observed it, and etc. But it's not my own memory telling me this. And so we learn and we come to reasonable conclusions. But I came to this world, into this world, with the mystery of my beginning. When I started to be conscious of my existence, I cannot tell you. And so, as a collective, as humanity, we also have this mystery. And there are great men and women who've been doing work to help us remember, understand, and we will see that later on. And that's what is known as science. um, which, when used with adequate humility, can provide us a lot of answers. And so, what is my current definition of God? I lack knowledge to define God beyond stating my simple belief that we were conceived by one who was not invented by us, Homo sapiens sapiens. That's it. I do not describe any further than that. So, what this means is that, yes, I have concluded that the God of my childhood is a fraud. The old white man with the beard who, lives in the clouds and who apparently, created the world in 7 days and then got tired, rested the seventh day. That is what we learned as we were growing up to be l'histoire conte, storytelling, tales. And I recall in 1993 when I was in Australia, and I met the Yara Yara people in Sydney, in a community, I believe it was Redfern, and they were telling their creation story. They were, explaining the great snake and all of that. And then I realized that all human communities have their own creation stories. And so the fact that I grew up in this Christian ghetto, if I may describe it like that, made it natural for me to grow up with that story. But the flaws, the obvious flaws of that story that was forcing myself to discount and say, well, no, the only reason why you're questioning this is because you lack faith. No, it's not that you lack faith, it's that your brain is working. Your brain is simply telling you that no, Noah, and his little boat um, did not have any dinosaurs. And yeah, you go to the museums and you're seeing those dinosaurs. So there's a little problem here in that story. And so my definition of God doesn't go any further than to say that, yeah, that, you know, uh, 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 character that was introduced to me uh, for the current state of development of humanity is inadequate. That said, and some people questioned me in the book and they said that, well, you're supposed to offer a God. No, what I am saying is my current understanding and belief, I should say, not understanding, belief, is that there is intelligent design in our existence. Therefore, it is not a God that I am creating. And what I have found is evidence that the God that I was introduced to in my childhood was created by men. And we will see that in the coming weeks. And it has all the characteristics of men. Okay, but we will discuss that later on. But I am talking here about an entity that we human beings did not create. And I cannot say more than that about it because I don't know more than that about it. And so, yes, I celebrate the great achievements of mankind while mindful these remain at our scale and current limitations. Whether it is the great citadel in Haiti, in northern Haiti, the largest castle or citadel fortress in the Caribbean, built by King Henri Christophe. And it is important, as we're talking here on the 1st of January, which is the liberation of Haiti, that human beings valued freedom to such an extent that they would make the sacrifices that it required to build such a huge castle, a fortress, sorry, not a castle. It wasn't for someone to live in. It was really to fight enslavers. That shows that, you know, it's not just the magnitude of the architectural work, but rather the human spirit that is embodied in that fortress of La Citadelle Henri Christophe, which makes it precious. Yes, the Great Walls of China, which I visited in 2014, or the pyramids of Giza in 2010 and 2006, awe-inspiring. Like to this day, people don't understand what is the real age of the Sphinx or the pyramids of Khufu, etc. And you know, you go to Latin America here in Guatemala, and you're seeing the pyramids there. Clearly, there has been different periods of great human achievements, and here I'm just showing stuff of agriculture. I mean, works that we do to erect buildings. But of course, we've done amazing things, changing a human heart with artificial material, etc. Like we've done a lot of stuff. And this is the work of the cells of our brain. However, when you put it to scale, we are still um, very much limited. And to make this point, I will only share two references for this show. The Brain Maze, which is on Facebook, and The Big Think, where you see an excerpt here where in that episode, it was this brother, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who was speaking about several things, like about, you know, is it reasonable to believe that there's other intelligent being in the universe, in the multiverse, okay? Um, and Neil deGrasse perspective on this is quite interesting. But he was making a statement here that I don't know if you can read it well, but I'll enlarge this a little bit. But he said, understandably, I suppose, but it implies that we know that it's matter, but we don't. What he's referring to is dark matter. And he's saying that we actually should not be using the term dark matter, but rather dark gravity. Why? Because we are inferring the existence of this thing because of the motion of objects, celestial objects. We're seeing things moving, and we are making the conclusion that yes, by these laws of physics, etc., we can understand why the Earth is turning around the sun, and the sun is doing its own loop in the Milky Way. But there's a whole kinds of other stuff happening that we have no idea what is pulling them. And then they call that void or that thing in the universe dark matter. But he's saying it's not matter because we haven't seen it. It's like nothing. But it's not nothing because it's having an impact, and it's the impact that we're measuring. And he's saying that we should actually call it dark gravity. Whenever I see a scientist say we don't know, I feel a necessity to applaud because more often than not, people present the theories as if they have established a fact. And in reality, whenever you're talking about these millions of years, you have already reached a scale that is way too much for us, even with all of the computing powers that we have to this day. And so I'll share with you now one of the websites that I really encourage people to check out, because this website really has a lot of very interesting stuff that I think people would really benefit from visiting it. Like I said, the um, the pleasure one gets through learning is something that religion, as we will discuss it in the next few weeks, is trying to deprive us of. And one of the reasons why I find this program, I consider it important to do this program, is again to encourage people to not give up that power. Of course, because of my current, working definition of God, or belief, um, I attribute that curiosity, that ability to learn and to discover, to God. Someone else might say, well, this is stretching it. You don't really need to call it God. No, I don't need to call it God. It's just that I find it reasonable to say it's God. But um, I am not here to, you know, uh, like I say in the book, I don't feel that God needs anyone to lie for him, or her. Okay. Again, that's another thing that as giver of life, I find it more reasonable to use the female pronoun when referring to God. But again, it's neither this nor that. Uh, this website, The Brain Maze, has a number of interesting things. So here, they're showing some of the Earth, the solar probe, Parker, showing, giving us a whole lot of new information. They're talking here about this being the fastest object that we've ever put out there in the universe. And this is like very, very recent information. And also the fact that this is so close to the sun, that we've managed to send equipment that is measuring. And again, look at the scale here. Okay, so we are not the center of the universe by any stretch of the imagination. And so it's really, to me, very fascinating, that yes, we have a planetary alignment that is coming up on the 25th of January. So in just a few days, this is something to look out for. The experts are saying that we are likely not to feel anything when this happens, but it's an interesting thing that all of the planets around our solar system, that's our little neighborhood here, okay, uh, will be aligned, and therefore, astronomers will be able to take picture of all of the planets. That's all exciting stuff, okay? But again, if you take this to scale, and there are a number of scale animations on these websites, uh, they will quickly bring you to the conclusion that, okay, we got to be a little bit more humble in our pronouncements on this earth, when you consider that, um, yeah, I think I might actually be very generous when I say that you and I talking about God here are like two ants at the corner of the room. We might even be even smaller than that. Okay. Uh, but that's not something that I find at all discouraging. On the contrary, the fact that we've been able to extend beyond our limitation, or physical limitation, to send a probe close to the sun to take these actual pictures and to do these simulations based on the calculations of mathematics that we've been able to do, means that our brain, we are using it as much as possible to try to get insight that is very, very exciting. And so, again, The Brain Maze is one of those websites on Facebook that I recommend that people take a look at with regards to information that is related to uh, the magnitude of what exists out there in our space and the progress that we are making as a human species. Again, I mentioned earlier, the fact that the sun is making its own rotation, around the Milky Way, and the Milky Way is just one of these galaxies. There are, I don't know what numbers of them. Okay, we're talking about a scale here that is beyond our comprehension. You could not identify the Earth in there. We are just way too small to even be seen. And so that's why our conclusion is that the little, um, you know, uh, God that is totally paranoid that is described in the Bible, um, that thing is passe. Like they describe in that book that God gets angry because man is developing knowledge and they're building something that is about to touch the sky. Yeah, right. Now we know that there is not something called sky that a building can touch. So this story is reflective of the level of knowledge of the folks who are writing. We will discuss that in the coming weeks. And so, what do we have in store for you next? Well, I will share with you the um, the material that we have for um, uh, please check out those references. Um, so God has a chosen people. Yes, that's what we will discuss next as we try to understand who is God and whose God are we talking about here. Well, this brother, you know, um, was told that he is part of the special club. Well, apparently, Brother Albert Einstein said, "No, thank you. I don't." He's referring here to his God letter, which is something that I really encourage people to go and research. Einstein's God letter, written on the 3rd of January, 1954. It's important, very interesting reading. So we will develop the concept of God's chosen people next week. I say hello to Bouli, to Marinadine Pierre, to Ronald Laborde, Ajene Eben, all of you who are connected to the program this evening. I hope that the themes that we covered were of interest and that you will remember to share the program, help it reach uh, further away. Like we said, the reason that we consider it important to do this program is that as we are entering this period where young people are rejecting fear, the fear that caused us to close our eyes to the stupidities that we were being fed as children with regards to our beliefs. These will no longer stand. Uh, I'm glad that my children um, uh, were a little bit better equipped than I was when I was growing up with regards to um, some of those fundamental questions. Now, that said, um, you know, uh, there are could be new fears to replace old fears. In fact, many of us who are folks who have gone through different belief systems, we can relate to that, you know. Um, but if you consider another option, that is, instead of adopting a new fear, you know, like you were Christian, you become Muslim, you were Seventh-day Adventist, you become Jehovah Witness, you're still in the same circle. But I'm proposing that there are other alternatives out there, and one of them is basically knowledge. And, some people call it science, but again, science is such a word that has uh, become intimidating, my simple definition of science is knowledge that human beings have accumulated over time. And therefore, it's not a knowledge, it's not someone who has the knowledge, it's our body of knowledge. And it is important to share it. And again, there's no need for us to feel that, okay, well, I have to become a rocket scientist or I have to become an astrophysicist. No, just like you drive a car without yourself being an engineer who designed the car. No, you trust your fellow human beings who have developed that knowledge and established the fact that, okay, you take the key, you put it there, it will start the car, and then you learn how to drive the car. We as a collective have been able to develop enough knowledge to trust ourselves to enter into, this huge thing. Okay, we have no wings in our backs and we are flying. We fly 14 hours, from Canada to go to Tokyo, to, you know, Australia, etc. That's because humanity has this most powerful computer in our heads. And again, I posit that if we were designed by a stupid God who wanted us to be stupid, there is no way this God, okay, she would have put such a powerful brain in our head. Zandolit, these little lizards that we have in Haiti, I don't think they have a very powerful brain. We could have been made with one of those. No, no, there's a reason why we have this powerful brain. And so, Wunal Labot say, what about why God is not white? Yes, we will get to that in the next episodes. Again, like I said, today's show is focused on our understanding of God, because we do say praise God, and then we say down with religion. And so we are addressing our understanding of God. And so, like I said, in this definition that I provided here, I do not go over any description of the God. Again, just like Neil deGrasse Tyson was describing um, what he termed dark um, gravity. Okay, you define dark gravity by its effect, the effect that it is having on the celestial bodies that you see being attracted. So there's a pull, there's a gravity here that we are observing, and therefore you said something must cause that, and that's something you don't know it, you don't see it, you cannot compute for it, and they call it dark gravity or dark matter. And he's saying that, well, actually the word matter is not appropriate because we don't even know what it is. Okay, because people started using the term antimatter, matter, and all of that. He proposes dark gravity. Well, my God is very much kind of like that. It's not an entity that I'm here to describe. I say that the existence of that entity is made necessary by all of these other things, like me and you having this conversation tonight, because everything else that we see has an engineer, someone who had conceived it, and it's not by coincidence. And there are all kinds of philosophers who describe that kind of thinking in the past. I am not inventing anything here. I'm just saying that this is what I consider to be more reasonable now. Thank you very much for everyone who connected tonight. And please share and join us next time. Ask questions, make your statements, and I will try to answer or comment back. I feel that humans are created from the DNA of the father and mother. Similarly, the planets were created by genetics from at least two other beings. I don't know what to feel because I simply don't know. And I think it's interesting that what we don't know is more than what we know, and that there's plenty of opportunity for us to build our body of knowledge. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next week. Same time, same channel.
Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home. For it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church.
Samuel said to Saul, I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites.
Jésus, par ton sang précieux, enlève mon iniquité. Regarde-moi sur les cieux, dis-moi que tu m'as pardonné. J'ai longtemps erré cœur rebelle, mais j'entends ta voix qui m'appelle. Au pied de ta croix maintenant, tout confus, brisé, je me rends. Blanc, blanc, plus blanc que neige, blanc, plus blanc que neige, lavé dans le sang de l'agneau, je serai plus blanc que la neige.
Now go, attack the Amalekites, and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. 1 Samuel 15.